Design lives here, AI special with the two double Bs, big brains. Peter Kerr, founder and director of Cameron Kerr, and Andy Pennington, founder and creative director of Float. Peter, previously on Design Lives Here, at the time was still called Salotto Sessions, but there you go. So what we discussed last time you were here a year ago is AI as a tool, right? And I've been a very good girl, and I followed your instructions to the T. So I get my friend AI to do the legwork, as you suggested, increase my productivity. It makes processes much faster. I question the results it gives me because I don't take it for granted. I say, are you sure about this? Dig it further in, blah, 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 blah. And I still use my brain. So I'm telling AI what to do. Okay. But I recently discovered that, it came to my attention a few months ago that ChatGPT is a big funder of Donald Trump. So I said, I'm not going to give my money to that prick. So I then did a bit of digging and realized there's an equivalent AI called Claude, which seems to be slightly more ethical with its methods. Now, I texted you about this, and you said, fill your books. I don't discriminate about technology.
No.
Why?
Why do we discriminate technology?
Yeah.
If you discriminated against technology, you would not exist on this planet, right, on the basis of political views. Because if you were like that, you wouldn't be eating any food. You would not be consuming any energy, right? And you wouldn't be buying any clothes. Because most of the businesses that we are consuming elements from, do come from similar, I feel like, approaches to the likes of Donald Trump, or is it China, or is it this, or is it that? So for me, everything's taken at face value, and I do not follow those principles. I don't follow those principles at all, because pretty much anything you do in life will tie back to some big corporation that's doing something bad.
Can we live without corporation?
I think the way society's structured at the moment, I think we're pretty much slaves to corporations. Do I think we can change it? I think that's a big question. And it would take a huge movement of people to do that. And I don't think there is the will to do that. I think a lot of people like to follow, not to lead. And I think that's where the biggest limiting factor is.
What do you think about that?
Well, I do agree that I think if you want to ask the question, can we change it? The answer is yes. The question actually is there an appetite to do so? And you are right with regards to leadership and following. Unfortunately, I do think that the odds are kind of stacked against the consumer a little bit. Yeah. Because corporations have mastered the science, or maybe both, of drawing you in, of essentially detaching you from your money in some way or another. So like we are all drawn through this unless you make a very conscious, active effort to reject it, which most people won't do for convenience. Yeah. And then you're left with a kind of now a nuanced problem, which is even if you know you should, and even if you know you could, if you do so, you actually be doing more harm to yourself anyway by doing that, So.
Do you discriminate on technology?
Sometimes, probably. With some things I do. I think it's important to keep a sort of healthy mind of reason about certain things. But, I'll take, for example, I used to use an iPhone. I don't use an iPhone anymore. I use Samsung Android. Okay. I far prefer it, and I will never go back to an iPhone. And the reason was not because it wasn't great. I mean, one of the things I loved about the original, Apple marketing angle was, you already know how to use it. That was their slogan. And I love that because they engineered simplicity to the point where it was so natural that a child could do it, right? And that's very hard to fight against. And most people love iPhones. For me, at that point, I was like, it needs more than that. I need a little bit more ability to tweak this, to customize it to the way that I like to work, and which, although they may offer that more these days, I still think that there's an Apple methodology that you use, so you may count that as an act of rejection, but it's not really. I'm still using a mobile phone. I'm still using Google. All the things that you would still do on an iPhone in some way. So
Yeah, but it's not ethically based. It's more about what you're saying. is
technological
requirements. You're right. Yeah, there's a closed down, and there's more opportunity to do things with other operating systems in those phones. But it's not ethics based, which is what mine is more about. It's so hard to actually make ethical based decisions on the purchases of products.
So it's a waste of time.
But yeah, to me, I just have to move on, because you start to just fall into all sorts of kits. You just see if you start following the chain of like everything that you're looking at in a product, there's always some unethical aspect.
Yeah, that's true.
It's such a minefield. And then you get caught out and somebody makes a decision ethically. Oh, I did this and I'm doing this now. And somebody go, but did you know? Did you know that the Claude uses, the American taxpayers' money to actually fund themselves?
On a slightly unrelated note on that, actually, I mean, take for example, like beauty products. So there's this revolution of anti-animal testing with beauty products, right? But what people don't know, probably because they don't scratch the surface enough, they see this sort of ethical label and they think, like, okay, I'm doing something good here. But all of the individual components that made that thing were at some point tested on animals anyway. So, like, it might not be, they might package it that way, but it isn't.
Well, similarly, my main problem was with veganism. They do veganism to save the planet, but then all that soy that needs to be grown, it creates more CO2, more carbon footprint than the cows in the Scottish fields.
You're a good company. I used to be vegan, actually, until fairly recently. I was a vegan for about 6 years. These days I'm pescatarian, but as a result, I've done quite a lot of research into that side of things as well.
I know. I was going to get myself in trouble already.
No. Even like fishing, right? Rolling the sleeves up. Let's go.
Fishing as well. Let's think again. Oh, that's good, but you think
it isn't. And if you want to take a purely ethical standpoint on it, like you can't. People would argue to me, for example, I know fish are less, conscious, and not conscious is the wrong word. Less, it's what is the right word? You know what I mean?
Self-aware.
But I'm a fish. But no, they don't want to die. I treat animals inherently in people, right? Yeah. So so there is no real life deployment there, really, other than that. But there's choices that we make, and so and it kind of brings us full circle back to what choice are we willing to make about this life?
Right, let's rein back into AI. We digressed already.
Is that veganism, Donald Trump?
Politics already.
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of Donald Trump.
Yeah, me neither.
Just missing religion, and then we've done the full topic. Right, so when I came to see you 3 weeks ago, you showed me all your incredible work. And we discussed about how you were AI adopter. You've done a lot of research to see how AI can allow you to offer a service that otherwise, faster and things that you could not otherwise offer. And then you showed me this picture of one of your clients, the conference room in a hotel that, between brackets, needed a full refurb more than better pictures, but that's another discussion. And then your client came to you and said, this is what I got from the photographer. I can't use it because it's rough as hell. Can you do something about it? And then with AI, you managed to dress it up, the furniture in the right place, put plants around, people in it. So my objection to, and then you said, so thanks to AI, we are managing to expand to services that normally would not be able to do, and we're expanding in photography. However, I've been thinking about it, and then my objection to that is that in 20 years of photo shoots, I've never, ever left the photographer to their own devices. I always worked alongside with them, moving the furniture, closing the curtains, arranging, creating the shot. So are you actually really taking over from photography, or are you just taking over from lazy or inexperienced photographers?
I would say probably more the latter, but to a degree the first. So to understand fully about this, what we did was we were supplied the photography, the layout, the furniture and stuff wasn't correct, and the lighting wasn't amazing. And they said, "What can you do?" So our approach to that was we first used AI to remove the furniture from the scene. So now we had the potential to rebuild it using the CGI in the way that we wanted to arrange the furniture. Now, so yeah, to your argument, yeah, if they had arranged it that way correctly the first time, perhaps, but they didn't. And so what's the solution to that problem? Well, okay, we can redo the photo shoot. Now, if we take that approach where you really need to be on site to art direct this, they need to fly out to Barcelona to do this. So then it leads into discussions of the environment and the logistics and so on, right? So we were able to take that, and yes, okay, so in days gone by, they would have probably gone back to like, this isn't working, paid another X amount to get it redone the way that they wanted. And we've solved that now for them. So yeah, I think
Without going to Barcelona, without
exactly. Could they have done it right first time? Perhaps. But you know, in part of our research, the way that they had laid it out is actually quite common amongst the way that they portray these spaces. It just didn't look great. So for me, it does feel like there's a gap there that we're bridging, that we're edging into, which we could have done it the hard way before. Like we could have instructed the talks. We could have been the ones to do that, but we can now bridge that gap really successfully. And on that note, we did another job, which unfortunately I'm not able to talk an awful lot about, but what we were able to do was stock aerial photography that we purchased. But it was too high. It was too high up. This was a city centre site that we were trying to show a location. So we were able to use AI to change the viewing angle of that photography to a much lower drone-based height to get a better angle of the CGI. Now, that meant we were disrupting drone filming and photography at that point because we saved in the cost of that. And including all of this sort of the planning, logistics, art direction that we needed to instruct it, we had full control over it ourselves. And yeah, solve that. So it's edging into that. You still need that creative element. You do definitely have to have that, I think. And you know,
So you kind of you've done the art direction with different tools, but you're still doing the art direction.
Yeah, we've still identified that this, you know, it's not that we've taken the photography out, that's all we've got. It'll just have to do. No, that every project demands its own solutions, right? You need to discover what they are. You need to scope the process out. You need to find out what this project is asking of you and asking of the client, and sometimes even asking of the people that the client are showing it to. So that this is you can't ask AI to do that for you, right? Yeah. This is a human thing you need to do. Now, I'm not saying that we will never reach a point and I can't analyze like that, but at the moment it does not. But what it can do is it can automate parts of the process in a much quicker, more efficiently. And it gives you now that the flexibility opens right out areas which we normally either wouldn't be able to access or would have just been really not cost effective to do so.
So this is another conversation you and I had. AI at the moment is really not a threat for that many jobs, but what we really need to worry about is AGI.
Yeah. I think that's could be one of the bigger disruptors is AGI, because AGI operates like a human. It operates on the basis of using the tools that humans use, but on the basis that they're developing, right? So, whereas at the moment, a lot of the types of things are like, you tell your tool, do this, do that. What you can say is design me a building, right? And give them a bit of brief. But we're able to take it from that and then do something with it. Other than you saying we need, given it, so you be able to give it less inputs to develop a more complex output. And I think the concern that I've got with this is that, again, from a corporation's perspective, I can see them like creating like licenses. You get a license for Microsoft 365 or something like that. You get corporations licensing. This is a mechanical engineer profile, right? So we're selling you that instead of a human. It will cost you £3,000. Rather get a salary, and so you can see how they're kind of leveraging it. And with AGI, there's so much debate about where it's at. Some people think it's 10 or 20 years away. Some people think it's within the next few years. So there's a big range of thought on AGI. But the moves that I've even seen in tool development since last year, compared this to this year, is dramatic. And even in the last few months, it's moved on exponentially. The kind of image generation is significantly improved just in the last few months from where it was. There's less of the hallucinations and stuff like that. But again, in any creative element, obviously, that you're involved in, there's the context and the understanding of the human perception. And you're right, I kind of see yet, the AI taking that over as it stands. Because human perception is that, when we analyze images, as an example, we pick up small things. And I don't think that gets picked up.
Well, I would actually maybe challenge that slightly because what you're essentially talking about there is pattern recognition.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the kind of whole sort of notion of there's no such thing as original design. All we do is we take influences from that we've collected over whatever period of time. Pattern recognition is what AI is amazing at. Understanding, evaluating, and predicting is what it will become amazing. So there's an argument that says that, I mean, years ago, I actually, an ex-colleague of mine, mutual friend, Janice Kirkpatrick, was talking at TEDx, and she was, she did a talk on, I don't want to misquote this, but it was quite a long time ago now, but it was to do with the value of brand and what brand is and what brand brings. In the same block of discussions, there was another talk from someone on AI. And so I had kind of started, as I always like to do in some form, as heckle in some way. I was thinking, right, what can I ask Janice about this and cross the two over? And the question I'd had was, will we reach a point where AI can design a brand as well as, or even better than a human can? Now, at that stage, I'm fairly sure, don't want to speak out of turn for Janice, as you might disagree, but I'm fairly sure her answer would have been no, it absolutely cannot. Whereas the chap who's talking about AI transfers would be yes. I think we're reaching that point where we can see that there's the yes could be the answer, and I think AGI would be the thing that does it.
AGI would definitely be. I think at the moment you need to provide what an image generator.
Yeah,
you need to put so much input to get it there. It can eventually get there, but I bet you that they just go in and give it a wee brief, and then it did the furniture and it did it on one go. You would have been iterations and that's not quite right.
So does AGI can actually replace the human?
Yeah, and that's ultimately where it is. It's that human level thinking.
So why?
Because we can't. I think for me, there might be scenarios. I think economically, I think there's problems. But in terms of where we're doing AI, I think it's going to evolve. But I think for me, the biggest concerns are more on the economics and the social thinking side of things. So how we, as human beings, are going to get, if you like, our kicks in life. Where are we going to get the motivations in life in the future? If AI takes us all the things that we need abstracted to us, and that worries me.
It's interesting that as a thought. I mean, I hear that a lot. Like if we're expecting to have a huge societal impact, then we need to be putting in place things right now. I mean, governments need to actually be taking. I mean, there's a really good. I was watching a video on this. I think it was Alex O'Connor was talking about AI, and somebody said something like this, and he said this. It's a bit like being in the woods and watching a brush fire. It's it's like sitting there going, well, what is the nature of fire really? And how far do we honestly think it would spread? How many people do we think it would take to put it out? Or you can just put fire out, like that. And so I feel like, I feel like we're watching the bushfire, and we're kind of not doing anything, and not nowhere near enough about it from a government level. And I think that for me, the argument there is that if we are talking, like seriously talking about something which affects humanity at the levels which some people believe it will, then this is something which humanity should have a voice in and should have a decision on. But yeah, it feels like that decision is taken out of their hands and is pushed to corporations. So that consolidation of power and control is concerned. So yeah, there needs to be way more action at a government level, I'd say.
So is there any of us safe then?
We are safe.
Define safe.
Well, our
it's like,
generation sort of, how about our children's generation?
I think
Safe would be that, well, you can earn your living and feel fulfilled.
Yeah. I can tell you and I are already thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, being a vegetable paid by the state, like communist countries back in the day, I wouldn't say that I'm safe at that level.
Well, this is where I suppose we're doing to define what the term safety actually means. I mean, does it mean physical safety? What you seem to be talking about there is mental safety, like satisfaction in your life.
But they go hand in hand, because if your brain collapses, your body collapses.
That's true. But, I think if someone is content with painting, we love painting all their life, and then they get the chance to do that all day, every day, they're very happy. So it's all relative, yeah, I think defining, because for me, what I foresee potentially being the issue here is that we have too big a gap to bridge between universal basic income and where we're at right now.
Yeah,
we're going to hit that. We're going to hit that critical point way before we're ready. And one of the best suggestions that I've heard is just start it now. Just start it now for $10. This is what I heard, right? Everybody gets it for just at least have something in place, a system that we can build, evolve, grow, change, adapt, whatever, but at least start it so that, we're having the conversation and we can evaluate in real time. But I worry greatly that we're blindly walking into this, and things are going to get a lot worse before it gets better economically.
Yeah.
So not to be all doom and gloom about it, but it's hard to ignore.
Yeah. 100%. Honestly, and I think that economic, the sense of fulfillment thing. So every fulfillment is different for everyone, right? So you're a creative person, so you'll always have an idea about what to do, right? When the way that future employment is going to work is there'll be more opportunity for people with personality, creativity, and innovative thinking, right? Because that is who's interested for us to talk to. There's where they get the intellectual debates,
the kicks, the
kicks, and they go, oh, "This is good, right?"
I get that kick every time I talk to you.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like you're having a good conversation. And those individuals, and obviously in my field, which is engineering, there's a lot of people in engineering that just want to do a job. They just want to come in, so I get my head down. They don't really want to talk to people. Right? That's true. There's a lot, right? In fact, we find that there's probably a bigger majority of people who just want to come in and do something.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't have that, we'd everybody want their leader. And I'm telling you right now that is not the case. It's the opposite, right? So those individuals are going to come in, right? And the thing is in they're part of a machine. They're part of the current machine.
Yeah.
And the problem is that's the type of individual that will end up getting replaced. It's not the creative types or the alternative.
But there's the majority. So the majority of people are going to get replaced.
So no. So what will happen is there'll be less opportunities. It's a bit more complex than that.
Okay.
In my view is there will be there's two scenarios in my world, right, about where everything will go, right? So they're both based on the economic issue that we're facing. And if you want me to come on to that, then I can.
Go for it.
Right. So the economic. So if you take an example, if you look at the S&P 500 at the moment, right, which is obviously particularly the US, if you like, market rate. Now, 35% of the businesses in that are kind of AI type businesses. Most of those businesses are hugely leveraged in terms of debt, right? That debt is based upon future revenue generation, right? And I've just got one example here, right? Just because it's good. The OpenAI one, who raised $200 billion to fund their next stage on revenues of only $30 billion. So the issue there is that the $200 billion to build the new data centers and stuff like that, to increase that revenue, it's got limiting factors, right? And the limiting factors are the capex cost in data centers. Now, the issue with capex costs in data centers is generally equipment in there is replaced between 3 and 7 years, depending on what like the data center. So it's not like some of the big infrastructure projects we've had in history, like the railroads and electrification. They're still there. Yeah, they're still there. So you've got this capital turnover every 3 to 7 years, right? For equipment, upscaling, etc., which is really difficult. And guess where we're sitting at the moment? One of the kind of precipices with Trump's war in Iran with energy costs. Energy costs are one of the most significant operational cost burdens on a data center. What's going to limit a company's value, when this is what we'll get to, on the S&P is the ability to deliver higher revenues based upon the loan that's against it, right? And if you get to a situation where we can't actually make that business case happen, etc., etc., then the value of that business drops. So it's almost like having a negative equity mortgage.
Yeah.
What do you do, right? And so that's a scenario, and then we'll end up in a kind of potential global recession because a lot of the financial markets in the world are based upon the US, if you like, financial side. So that's that kind of scary scenario one. So we end up in a recession, we end up with government bailouts, because that's what
It's must.
right? So we end up with government bailouts, and then what we'll have is a slowing down of the upscaling of AI for a period, right? So a little delay to what could happen. And then what will happen is that if it's under government control, if we've competent government, which we don't really,
It's quite unusual.
Maybe that's the biggest aspect.
let's assume we have competent government.
At some point we will have a problem. It can't be this, this forever.
Yeah, but so let's assume we have competent government. And then there can be some of those safeguards maybe they put in place, like they did with the banking crisis. They put in safeguards, but now we've got the shadow banking sector, which is probably chat, right? So there's that scenario. Then there's a second scenario where the crash doesn't happen, right? And then we end up with a hyperscale of this. We managed to build all the data sets. We managed to really accelerate AI, right? It will then accelerate that kind of. I'm not going to say leads to job losses. What it does is, and the statistics show, it's not really leading to job losses. It's leading to jobs not being created. So the opportunities for work, which is right, and it tends to be as it stands in the kind of lower, if you like, the lower value. So that the graduates coming in, they'll find it harder because a lot of the tasks the graduates do will be replaced by AI.
So they can learn.
So it's not really the learning. It's just that there's a barrier there. So a lot of businesses, like mine, is what I've said, is that people we're looking for graduates. We say we want you to come in with the mindset that you've got a business or that, and you'll have share options and techniques. So you're not coming in thinking I'm going to be a coffee machine.
Yeah.
You need to come in and think and have an entrepreneurial spirit, and come in and think you're going to be a future leader, because that is the thing that we can't replace, because human contact is so important. But we're not looking for the people. I'm not going to say 9 to 5, but just the calls and machine, just the people just want to come in, do some card, go home, get it in. That's not the thing that I think will have a long-term future.
Yeah.
And I think that's society needs to make up to the fact that, you need to demonstrate something that's a wee bit different and a better offer.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard scenarios that have been described within that model where, the dam block is put in place for those junior roles, but then what you're left with is a really negative cascade over time, because you get a consolidation of skill sets internally. And before you know it, even those middle to high level management start getting phased out because they're not needed anymore. So really all you've got is oversight. And what you're left with potentially in a large company, it's a very small number of people just keep things ticking over, and they will relinquish the control to a degree. I mean, it's an interesting thought experiment. And I would invite all your viewers to truly think about this as well, right? Try to do this as honestly as you can. Imagine a situation where somebody came along who's an authority on AI and everything AI. I'm avoiding saying higher authority because I don't like that term, but let's just say a complete authority. Imagine they came along and told you that not only will your job be affected in 2 years' time, your career as you have right now is no longer a thing in 2 years' time. And I invite you to think about that in the terms of absolution, that this is definitely true and it's definitely going to happen. This is an absolute authority, right? What's the very next thing you do? Like, what is the thing you would do that thing, or the next day, or that week? So there's several points along this spectrum that you would probably set, right? So there'll be the people who'd be like, there's just no way. There's no way that AI can do what I do. It cannot take my job, right? And I'm too good at what I do, blah, 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 right? That's fine. Take that stance if you like. There's going to be people who are looking at it going, there's maybe something in this. I should probably look into it at least a little bit. I should probably become at least a bit aware. Further down that spectrum, you've got the people who are like, we need to fully adopt this. This is like beyond words. We need to we're not accepting defeat, but we are accepting that this is something that we need to really embrace. And then at the very other end of the spectrum, you people who take the word for it, full of telling and go, "Nah, you know what, there's no point continuing to invest in a bad investment. I'm out, and let's go do something else instead." So I feel like we are kind of at the point that people don't realize where we have to be asking ourselves that question. Like, legitimately, if that is a true outcome, what will you do? Because if we're not talking about that or asking that question, then I promise you in your life that it will come back later down the line and you will be at the wrong end of that spectrum. I think that's what you're talking about is, that sort of entrepreneurial mindset. And in some ways, I don't really like it because not everyone has to be an entrepreneur, but you're right. I feel like those who think that kind of way are more likely to succeed generally. But it starts right now. This is not something that we don't think about later down the line. It's like we should already really be doing that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I keep my ear to the ground in visualization circles about how people, what attitudes are existing on this. And there are some studios who very proudly, actively take stance. We reject AI. We won't be using it. We believe in the craft of what we produce. Right. And it is very noble. Like I do appreciate the human element that that's coming from. But the way I've always described it is the water level's rising here. So you can either take that high ground or you can learn how to swim. There's two ways. And so we're learning how to swim. Now, there's a lot of research to show that creative industries are going to be really heavily hit by this. But we're going all in on it, and we're going to continue to research and develop and improve using AI and see what ways we can disrupt with it. And to try and keep our people doing it. But it does actually mean that our artists need to become, and I did speak to them all about this, it's like, you do realize that the shift in our industry is such that the way that we produce visualization in the past is quite likely going to be gone in a few years' time. We're going to be doing this in a completely different methodology than what we used to do. So I think they're kind of understanding that as well. So it's a serious subject, but I think thought experiments like that help people understand where they're really at, at least I would hope that it does. So
yeah, and again, but that's again because you've probably got a creative mindset.
It is.
And I've got an entrepreneurial mindset. So we're both thinking about it. But it's those, as you say, definitely encourage that, people who don't have that mindset to sort of take a step back. Most people in life don't take a step back and assess the situation and look at this and look at what's ahead. It's too much. Yeah. It's too much effort.
I know.
And it's like you've really got to do it now because like in our business plans, it's like your 3-5 year business plans. This could be totally disrupted.
Yeah.
So it's like our kind of annual update to the business plan is more about actually AI is a major consideration for us. It tells us about what disruption it causes in the market, what our competitors are doing. Right. In our market, which is different from yours, we've not got as many kind of people who really take them all high ground. We're in a cutthroat engineering, delivery business. So most of them are going, how cheap can we do it and how little people get employed? And one of the interesting factors for me is that there's something I wish I'd written it down. There was something I was reading about, and it was talking about it with the death of the kind of bigger businesses in our type of work. And you had it, you hit the nail on the head when you said that you were not going to need this whole bureaucratic middle management.
Yeah.
Right. What you're needing in a business, you probably end up with lots of small businesses coming up, doing things, maybe going away and doing something different. And that goes back to that entrepreneurial element, right? And again, creative people itself have entrepreneurs almost built into the creative side because you're always like, and I think for me, we could see a kind of a death of a lot of the types of businesses, and certainly in our industry in terms of engineering side. And because of the automation side of things, then you start thinking about the succession plan, right? It's like, I still need to employ people because I've either got one thing, a depreciating asset of a business, which doesn't have a future plan, without saying me intended, right? What's the next phase? And it's like everyone's old. There was just shut a business and just say, that was good, right? But the reality is if you're trying to establish a legacy, right, which we want to do, we would love to do that. I think again, you want to leave a legacy, but you think to say, what is the legacy? Is it going to be engineers? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a business we might need to totally flip and change on what it is. Is that again exactly what you're saying? What are we going to be doing? What are we going to be doing 3 years' time? Are we going to be sitting and doing jobs? We're already seeing an erosion of So sometimes they're in engineering world, and one of the things I like about AI and some of the agents that we've created is that there's a reduction in procrastination. And engineers are notorious at procrastinating, which leads to huge amounts of cost for businesses. See, and that's why work from home, it's not that people are not working. Most of the time, it's that procrastinating. They're going, oh. And if you go somebody else, they should say, right? If you've got AI and you bounce it off the person will be taking that answer as read, but it creates a bit of clarity and thinking and speeds up the decision-making processes. That person still makes a decision, but it creates clarity for them. And I think those kinds of things are where I see big benefits for us. But those new grads coming in, they still have to learn how to engineer. And that's why I've created an entire learning guide for our business. And obviously AI's in it. But it's about how to learn, because again, I spent 3 to 4 years university. Our education system doesn't teach you how to learn. It teaches you how to memorise and regurgitate. And if you don't understand context, you will move forward. So the thing is, an AI, it accelerates the downgrading of intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't try and educate people in how to think, understand how neuroscience works, which again my guide talks about the neuroscience, understand the brain, how the brain takes information and how it learns it. And then if you have that understanding, you create an innate fear of AI, which is good. It's a healthy fear of, if I'm not thinking and I'm letting that think for me, I'm not evolving and I'm not becoming more intelligent. I'm not gaining more understanding about the world and everything around me. You know, so that's why I did that. That's why I did that guide. It's a guide to learning for our team, to make them aware of that.
So it's very cool. I think it's probably something we should consider doing as well, actually. I think I have heard it put, and maybe this is an oversimplification, but I have heard it put, you're either going to be a consumer of AI or a user of AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be one of the two. So like, choose which one you want to be, but I'll be honest with you, at the moment, I think we're already in this maybe digresses slightly, right? But we're already in a little bit of a crisis before AI came along. I mean, when you listen to sort of Elon Musk talking about Neuralink and things like this, he describes quite succinctly that, when you describe the interaction with a mobile phone, what you're actually talking about is the fact that we are kind of cyber organisms at the moment. We just happen to do it through a phone. And actually the big slow disconnect there is how much it takes you to think about something and then to pull your phone out of your pocket and then to swipe and then to type it into blah, blah, blah. But if you can dispense with all of that part of the process and immediately access information, you have all the information that there has ever been right there at access to. So we have already kind of, I think, gone down this route of, and I think you can see that in some of the younger generations, there seems to be an element of, distraction. There's evidence that suggests that there's mental health issues that are generated in children right now.
Yeah.
Higher anxiety, attention span. So that's before AI was literally doing all the thinking for us. At least at that point, we had to make the decision to do stuff, or to look into something, or to evaluate. But now we're reaching the precipice of, we don't even have that. So you're right. I mean, there's so much pressure on us really to stay human at the moment, I think, so
yeah.
And quite rightfully, that's it.
And then note, I decided you don't really need to worry about your legacy, especially as an engineer. See, when I was in high school, so Italian high schools are proper, the real deal, not the walk in the park that you go here, right?
Yeah.
And I've worked my socks off for 5 years and I have zero recollection of any physics, chemistry, mathematics, Latin. But I had the best ever teacher of history and philosophy. So that's the elements that stick in my brain, and that's where I got my passion from, right? So thanks to my friend Claude, I've done a bit of digging in your ancestry. Yeah. And now I know why you're like that. Yeah.
Right. Oh,
I discovered that your great dad was Adam Smith.
So I could like this.
See, that's proof. Peter Kerr This is not. Don't refuse to do it because it's ethical.
I know.
But Canva didn't have the same moral, so that
That is
Very good.
that's Peter Adam Smith.
That's excellent. That
Deserves to be framed.
I know. Put up in the new office.
Right. Anyway, felt incredibly slow and stupid were in company with these two, but I think it was a very good chat. So thank you very much.
Thank you for